Hi, everyone. Did you ever wonder how a poem gets made? We're here in the poet Jack Grape's book-filled, tchotchke-infested study where he might be working on one. Shall we see what he's doing? Hey, Jack, what you doing?
Hey, Lisa, how are you? Oh,
I'm
I'm just
good.
I'm working on a poem. I'm working on a poem.
You are? Well, what's with the
Yeah,
magnifying glass and the hammer?
well, when you work on a poem, you got to use all your tools.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, if you're almost finished, can we see it?
Oh, yeah. Wait, let me get the. There we go. Yeah, I'll be glad to show it to you.
You know,
I got a
you know,
couple over here.
everybody, it's not often we get to see a poet working on a poem. I guess the hammer is to hammer out a metaphor, probably, most likely. Oh, okay. Here's the poet and the poem.
Here it is.
The poet hammers a nail into the smooth wood, poems in his head. A haiku by Jack Grapes. Nice poem, Jack. Good haiku.
No, I'm glad you like it. Glad you like it.
I didn't know it would be so literal.
A lot of work making a poem, especially
So
a
much for a
haiku.
metaphor.
Pull this nail out of my head here. Got it off. There. So, Lisa, what brings you here on such a cold and foggy day? I mean, and how did you get past the metal detectors and the guard dogs to my study?
Well, it wasn't easy, but Jack, I used my literary arts, and here I am. And I'm here to give you the BookFest Honorary Achievement Award.
Oh,
You
that's so
know,
nice. Thank you.
you're very deserving of it. I first encountered you in the late 1980s when I saw your play Circle of Will, and it was astonishing, really. I probably still have never gotten over it, and I
Wow.
wanted to see it again, and I spent 10 years getting over it, and then I spent the next 10 years wanting to see it again, looking for it. And 22 years after that night, I ended up as one of your method writing students. And that's when I eventually figured out that you were the guy that was responsible for the play. But I'd already been studying with you for 2 years at that point before I put two and two together. So, but let's get going, because after all, that's what I braved the armed guards for. So, are you ready?
Yeah.
Jack, this award acknowledges your impact on the worldwide community of poets and writers. As a poet, as a reader and performer of your poetry, as a teacher of writing, and as an editor and a publisher. Have I forgotten anything?
Oh, maybe you could mention dancer and, acrobat.
All right, and dancer and acrobat. I guess that means you know how to fall on your face then.
Yeah, I know how to fall on my ass too, but that's another story.
But from what I understand, that's part of the creative process, and that's how you got here. So
Right.
now that you're here, let's talk about your impact on the literary community. As a poet and a reader and performer of your poetry, over the past 50 years, you've had published over 20 and a half collections of your own poems. And Jack, that's no small thing.
Yeah, and the half is because one of my books was two poets. So I count that as a half, like Fellini's 8.5. I got 20 and a half.
It's very arithmetical of you. And these poems, you've read and performed them in places, haven't you?
Yeah, like a lot of poets, you read in cafes and bookstores and theaters, and I've read at literary conferences and poetry conventions, and I've read in a lot of places. I think I read a haiku in an elevator once in an office building.
And probably in different cities.
Yeah, I've read in Chicago and New York and San Francisco and New Orleans and many places.
Not to mention Southern California. So,
Right.
but you left out. I heard you also read in waterfront bars and motel lobbies. And I heard you read in a redwood grove to a bunch of people on the skunk train as they were traveling through.
How did you know about that?
Are you
Really?
kidding?
That's true.
No, really. Are you kidding? They're still talking about it in Northern California. Up there, they call you the skunk train poet. Well, and that's enough to claim impact on the literary community as it is. But there's more. As a teacher of method writing, Jack, in that same 50-ish year period, you've officially taught about 5,000 poets and writers and over 3,000 kids as a poet in residence in over 100 schools throughout California. And on top of that, you published dozens of anthologies of the kids' work. And, and speaking of you as an editor and a publisher, there's your literary journal, On the Bus. And through On the Bus, you published thousands of poets from around the world. And in that same, 50-ish year period, you, maybe longer, maybe shorter, I don't know, you've been publishing since you were a kid. You published about 50 individual collections of Southern California poets.
Yeah, through Bomb Shelter Press. Right.
Now,
a lot of poets.
What about your own poetry? I know we don't have time to mention all of your titles, but I'd like to highlight 4 or 5 of your most recent ones. Is there any chance you have them around?
Oh, yeah. I happen to have some here because they never leave my side. They're always here. I got the books. Yeah.
All right. Well, perfect. So, when I say the title, why don't you hold up the book? Could you leave it up a little longer? The Naked Eye, New and Selected Poems. Okay, next one. Poems so far. So far, so good. So far to go.
No. Then I have a little one.
All the Sad Angels.
Yeah. Right. And there's this one called Any Style. And I'm on the cover dancing with Rita Hayworth. That's me. And that's Rita Hayworth right there.
Well, aren't you a lucky guy, Jack?
I went with her in high school.
She brags about it too, I'm sure. So how about Exit Music, your most recent work?
Oh,
all of those other publications are available on Amazon, but not this one, because this one, tell us about it, Jack.
Well, this is a book with 50 new poems, but it's also got 100 reproductions of my watercolors and my oil paintings, and several actually self-portraits. That's one of my weird self-portraits there. It's like a museum coffee table book, and it's really cool. It's called Exit Music. There it is.
And somehow you forgot to mention the also 4 prose essays that are in there.
Yeah.
What about your memoir?
Oh, that's funny. I didn't think of it as a memoir. It's just I was going to make a little book of haiku, and I thought I'd write 20 haiku. I ended up writing 301 haiku, and I arranged them kind of in a chronological order because they began with when I was like 2 years old, and then it ended up with me being 80. And some reviewers said it was like a memoir. So this is it. It's called Wide Road to the Edge of the World. But I decided to write a kind of a 10-page introduction. So that became 350 pages. So Wide Road to the Edge of the World is actually a memoir, if you want to think of it that way, in 301 haiku, 201 chapters, 601 paragraphs, 3,400 commas, and 27 exclamation points.
Well, why wouldn't there be?
It's got all sorts of illustrations in it and things like that. It's really cool. I love it.
Yeah, it is. It is really cool.
And that's
But
also available on Amazon if anybody wants to get it, you know.
and who wouldn't actually? But it's not your only nonfiction book, I understand.
No, I've written a history, a 2-volume history of modern poetries, the plural from Homer to the present day, and it's a 2-volume work. I have it here. It's called Etherized Upon a Table. This is volume 2, and it's a pretty thick book. You know, it covers poetry forever, and you know, it's kind of interesting. Nobody's going to read it. I don't expect anybody to read it, but I had to write it. You know.
Do you have anything not quite as thick that someone might actually read?
Well, I'm working on a book on James Joyce's Ulysses, and that whole book is 600 pages, not published yet. But the part of it that was devoted to episode 3 of Ulysses is available on Amazon, and it's, you know, episode 3, Proteus, the 1922 text. That's available on Amazon, and it's got sort of a lot of graphics in it and notes on Ulysses. It's really cool. It's really cool.
Well, what about your 2 very beloved textbooks, Jack, that you use in your method writing classes? Yeah.
There we go. Method writing. And then we have the advanced method writing here. See?
The Art of Tonal Dynamics. Yep. Those are available on Amazon as well.
Right. Oh, and you know, Lisa, I'd like to remind people, you have written the 3rd volume in the method writing series, and it's called Method Writing, The Brush Up by Lisa Siegel. This is your book, and you teach that in method writing on the brush up. So, you know, let's give a little shout out to you for that. And while we're at it, you have published 2 books of your own work, your prose poetry, and your first book called Metamorphosis includes full color reproductions of your sculptures. You're an amazing sculptor, and I collect some of your work, as a matter of fact. And then you have a second book also available on Amazon called Kicking Toward the Deep End. So, you know, if there's no rest for the weary, you have been staying up a lot of nights working as well.
You know what I belated? Yeah, you know what I belatedly figured out, Jack?
What?
That's the method writing way. And no sleep, no rest, just multitudes of fruit if you put in the time and the effort and the work. And in that, I'm not unique amongst your students. I really appreciate you mentioning my publishing accomplishments, but I don't stand alone. I do not stand alone. Amongst us all, your body of students, there are poems, short stories, novels, memoirs, one-person shows, plays, scripts, poetry collections, literary journals, anthologies that exist really only because of method writing and because of your guidance and because of the example you set and because you can't help yourself from sharing it and because of your poetry and your prose and your work ethic. So your impact on the worldwide literary community, Jack, really and truly, it is a wide road, but you didn't walk it alone. You took all of us along with you, and you took us along in a multifaceted way. You took us as a poet, you took it as a writer, you took us as a playwright, you took us as a reader and performer, and as an editor, and as a publisher, and as a teacher. And that, Jack, is why BookFest is rightly honoring you with this award. Your turn.
Well, I'm very honored, and I very much appreciate it. I want to thank Desiree and Dave and Kim. It's a really beautiful award. It came in the mail the other day, and it's a hefty piece of glass. I mean, this thing is heavy, and it's got a title on the front. It's hard to read it, but if I put a black piece of paper behind it, there it is, the BookFest Award, Honorary Achievement. And it's really wonderful. And, you know, you're right. You mentioned I've been doing this since I was a kid. when I was 11, 12, and 13 years old, I belonged to a national organization, and I wrote my poems and I wrote poetry. I also published using a ditto machine, poetry and stories by all the people that were in this organization. It was a national organization, and I won an award for my publishing. And we also did a lot of philanthropic work, and we went into rest homes and old folks' homes, and I taught a lot of old people to write poetry, and I published them. I published a lot of old people, and this is before I got out of high school. And I came to LA, and I'm still doing what I did when I was 15. I'm publishing, I'm writing my poetry, I'm reading it, I'm teaching. I've had a very lucky and a blessed life, or I've never grown up, because I'm still doing what I loved doing back when I was a kid. So, hey, it's great. And I thank you. I want to thank everyone at BookFest for giving me the award, and Lisa, for you doing such a nice presentation. Thank
And
you.
on behalf of a lot of people, we thank you.